What makes The Prince of Egypt such a great film? Its powerful storytelling, stunning visuals, and tastefully placed comedic relief put it right up there with the very best. The opening scene alone is one of the greatest 8 minutes of animated film that I've ever seen. But in my opinion, it's the music, the score and the songs by the great Hans Zimmer and Stephen Schwartz that really drive the movie and turn it into the artistic masterpiece that it is. In particular, the use of leitmotifs. In this video, we'll explore 3 important musical themes in The Prince of Egypt and how they demonstrate the power of leitmotifs in general. What is a leitmotif? In music, a leitmotif, derived from the German Leit, to lead, is a recurrent theme associated with a particular person, idea, or situation. As we'll see, to lead is exactly what these musical themes do. The cool thing about a leitmotif is that while when it's first introduced, the context of the story clues the viewer into what it represents, once the musical theme and its meaning are established, the leitmotif itself informs the context of the story. Now, to be sure, the 3 themes that we'll focus on here are not the only ones in the movie, but in my opinion, they are the most critical for understanding the character development of Moses, which is what I am choosing to focus on in this video. The other musical themes are certainly worthy of analysis, and if people are interested in seeing a video on them, definitely let me know. The first theme is introduced at the very start of the film, and it's what we'll call the God theme. Now, I call it the God theme, but when it's first introduced to us, we don't know what it represents yet. It's just played over a black screen, serving as an overture while we're given a short preface to the movie. It's subtle, but about a minute later, we actually get another hint of this theme in the chorus of the opening number, Deliver Us. It's only 43 minutes into the movie that we hear this theme again, during the burning bush scene, and that's where we discover its meaning. We'll get back to that soon. Back to the very beginning of the movie. After the preface, we're launched immediately into the next theme, which I call the river theme, and by my count, this intimate melody gets the most airtime of all the themes in the movie. It shows up again a few minutes later as a lullaby to baby Moses from his mother Yocheved, sung by the late great Ofra Haza.
Hush now, my baby, be still, love, don't cry. Sleep as you're rocked by the stream.
The theme continues to show up in the movie, often as a diegetic element, for example here, when Moses mindlessly whistles it as a teenager, emphasizing that this lullaby is etched deeply into his subconscious. But it isn't surfaced for Moses until Miriam, his sister, sings it to him years later as an adult.
Hush now, my baby, be still, love, don't cry.
Moses hears this and instantly remembers who he is and where he comes from. Parenthetically, this is reminiscent of a modern story about Rabbi Isaac Herzog. After the Holocaust, Rabbi Herzog made it his mission to recover the thousands of Jewish children that were saved by Christian institutions and homes that hid and protected them. The story goes that he would recite the Shema, the fundamental article of Jewish faith from the Torah, and a verse that Jewish parents traditionally recite with their children. The Jewish children were those who recognized it. This is what the river theme represents for Moses. It represents the idea of peoplehood. This sets the stage for the third and final theme that we'll analyze, introduced about 20 minutes into the film, and it's the melody of the song All I Ever Wanted. Presented with this challenge to his identity as the Prince of Egypt, here Moses expresses his feelings of home and belonging in the palace of the Pharaoh.
The moonlight, cool and clean and all I've ever known. all I ever wanted. This is my home, with my father, mother, brother, oh so noble, oh so strong.
The song is reprised with Moses' adopted mother.
This is your home, my son. Here the river brought you.
The All I Ever Wanted theme represents home. And here Moses is torn between home on the one hand and his sense of peoplehood on the other. Moses eventually runs away from Egypt and begins a new life as a shepherd in Midian, married to the priest's daughter, Tzipporah. Years later, when Moses wakes up and opens the curtain to his tent, the All I Ever Wanted theme plays again. This tells us that Moses feels at home here in Midian, and that his time as the Prince of Egypt is now a distant memory. In just a few seconds, music paints a vivid picture of Moses' internal experience that might have taken an entire scene to communicate otherwise. But as we'll see, Moses is once again called to leave his home in service of a higher calling. While the first time it was his sense of peoplehood that uprooted Moses from home, communicated by Miriam through the river theme, this time it is God himself. This is the burning bush scene we talked about earlier, when the God theme plays again. This is where we first learn what that still thin sound was from the beginning of the movie, and what it was that the Hebrews were accessing in their Deliver Us prayer. It was the presence of God. God was already present at the beginning of the movie, in the proverbial darkness, even in the depths of Israel's despair. Now we first encounter the entity behind that
I don't
theme.
understand.
I am the God of your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
This theme represents the divine. The burning bush is Moses' first direct encounter with God and sets him on his mission. And we hear the God theme again when Moses rushes back home to tell Tzipporah about his experience. He is moved by the Spirit of God and energized to embark on his mission. This is a riff on the classic hero's journey. There was an initial separation from his environment when his sense of peoplehood moved him to run away from the palace, followed by his initiation to his mission by the divine at the burning bush, and now his return to execute his purpose. Immediately afterward, the river theme representing Moses' sense of peoplehood plays in the background, while we hear Moses for the first time identify himself as one of the Hebrews, while he shares his vision and his feelings of deep responsibility for his people
They are
with
free.
Tzipporah.
They have a future. They have hopes and dreams, and the promise of a life with dignity. That is what I want for my people. And that is why I must do the task that God has given.
While the God theme was absent for the first half of the movie, we hear it more and more as the movie progresses, signifying God's presence being made more and more apparent to the Hebrews and to their Egyptian overlords.
And the plague shall not enter. Wonders.
It's the divine, as represented by the God theme, that drives Moses to sort out the tensions between his peoplehood on the one hand and his sense of home and belonging on the other hand. Once Moses does return to Egypt, and the plagues against the Egyptians commence, Moses must confront these tensions in the most painful way. It's at this moment of destruction that the All I Ever Wanted theme shows up again, reminding us that Moses is foretelling the doom of those he loves most.
And even now, I wish that God had chose another. Serving as your foe on his behalf is the last thing that I wanted. This
and on the flip side, the betrayal that his brother Ramesses feels.
You who I call brother, how could you have come to hate me so? Is this what you...
In the words of Ralph Fiennes, the voice of Ramesses himself,
they're enemies. But when brothers are enemies, they don't stop being brothers.
thus, the plagues are not just the climax of the national story of redemption for the Hebrews, but also of the personal story of Moses and his final confrontation with his complex and multifaceted identity. In conclusion, these three themes represent, respectively, the values of the divine, peoplehood, and home. And for Moses, they are often in tension with each other. And the story of the Prince of Egypt is the story of Moses navigating these values and finding his place within them. This, I argue, is a primary message of the movie. Different values pull us in different directions, and part of the hero's journey, part of realizing his purpose, is to sort through them. Once Moses finds his place within these three values, they ultimately fortify him to take his place as an emissary of God and as the leader of the Hebrews. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you think. As a little bonus, here's something about the God theme that I got excited about. Stephen Schwartz is probably most famous for writing the music for Wicked, and he's often talked about how in Wicked he pays homage to the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow by incorporating those first 6 notes into Elphaba's Unlimited theme. It's a fun little Easter egg.
Unlimited.
One of my favorite YouTubers, David Bennett Piano, has a whole video about this that I'll link to below. The Unlimited theme is supposed to represent Elphaba's hope of finally being accepted and achieving great things. It's intriguing, then, that this same line is used here in The Prince of Egypt to represent the divine and omnipotence in the God theme. Both evoke a feeling of reaching upward. Now, it's important to note that Stephen Schwartz wrote the songs for The Prince of Egypt, while Hans Zimmer is credited with the score. However, it's certainly plausible that Schwartz collaborated closely with him on some of these themes. Another important caveat is that The Prince of Egypt was written several years before Wicked, so it's possible that there's no meaningful connection here at all. But it's intriguing to think that maybe these same ideas were swirling around in Schwartz's head. In any case, regardless of the writer's intentions, it's a connection that feels worth mentioning.